Okay, so the question from the caller today is basically how far is too far from a bug out location? And I used to maintain a bug out location near Hot Springs, Arkansas, and my main property that I lived and worked at was actually in Mansfield, Texas, which is just south of Dallas. That drive was about 4.5 hours, maybe 4 hours and 15 minutes if you were unencumbered by the female bladder. If you were encumbered by the female bladder and need to make more stops, then it was more like a 5 hour to 5 hour, 15-minute drive. I would say as bug out locations go, especially if you don't just want a bug out location. And I really recommend that you don't just get a bug out location. What you do is you get a recreational property, something that you can go hunting and fishing on, something that you can enjoy time at. That is an investment for you. It has the ability to do things for you beyond just being a fallback location. And that's how you have to see your bug out locations. They are fallback locations. They are where you go when for some reason where you're at ain't a good place to be no more. That doesn't necessarily mean that the shit has hit the fan, but it could mean that there was a storm that blew the roof off your house. And especially if you have flexibility with working remotely or something, you might go live at your bug out location. Or you've lost a job, and if you're smart, your bug out location costs you less to maintain as far as expenses than your main home, and you might bug out because you're unemployed and sell your house for some capital until you figure out what you're doing. Hopefully none of those things actually ever happen. Hopefully your bug out location never is actually used for bugging out other than for bugging out of the city to get a break. On that note, I would tell you from my experience, and we had that property for about 7 years before we moved there for a few and eventually sold it. There's a reason we sold it when we moved back to Texas. It wasn't because we needed the money we could get out of it. It was because we had realized at that point that it was impractical at that distance for us and our lifestyle. Especially when we decided when we moved to Texas, again, we were going to have a small farm, and animals keep you on property more and more. I would say the ideal distance, now again, ideal and what you can do, you know, what works for you is about 2.5 to 3 hours maximum. And it's far enough that whatever is affecting where you're at, you probably are not as affected by it at this other location. It's far enough away geographically that even during a major natural disaster that one of the two should have survived and been okay. Whether it's a hurricane, a tornado outbreak. I mean, if you have a tornado outbreak and you end up losing one home and another and they're 2 hours apart, man, don't test your luck after that. That's you know where you start looking at what's going on, man. So the reason I say that, with 3 hours or less, let's say on a Saturday and you have a place you can hunt, fish, forage, whatever. So on a Saturday, you decide, I want to go out to the retreat, the bug out location, the vacation home, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to spend the night, though. I just want to go out, maybe do some hunting, maybe do some fishing, maybe do some target shooting, maybe just tend to a few things that need to be taken care of. I want to come home tonight. Okay, 3 hours out. Let's say we get up early on a Saturday. We leave at 6 in the morning. We're there at 9. Let's say we're going to be there for about 6 hours. So we go, 3 o'clock. And that means we're home for dinner at 6. When you push it much past 3 hours, you just don't feel like doing it anymore. At least I don't. Now, I'm a guy that used to drive from Allentown to Hartford, Connecticut, and back in a single day sometimes for certain things that needed to be done. But, you know, that was alone, and it was as a part of, you know, work. This is something you would like to be more enjoyable. So my overall suggestion for you, when it comes down to it, is to try to keep your bug out locations 2 to 3 hours away. Now, I know there's a lot of people that hold themselves up as the rough and tough survivalists, and they're going to say, you got to be in the middle of a mountain, and the zombies are coming, and the UN, and the blue helmets, and the New World Order is going to come, and you got to get out further and hide in the middle of Idaho. If you want to do that, that's fine. But you'll have a property that in the end you probably won't like very much. Now, if you live somewhere not far, if you live like in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and you want to go a few hours out from there in the middle of pretty much middle of nowhere. Well, that would make sense for you. So that's the other thing that has to be factored in here. I give you these numbers, and you might say, but Jack, where I live, if I go 2 hours away, there's nothing but suburbs and cities. There is no bug out location. Okay, then you have to go further, or you have to change what you think you're talking about when you say bug out location. You might have other opportunities. For instance, I know people whose bug out location is a sailboat that they keep in a slip on a harbor. So it's a mobile bug out location. I know people that have a really, really, really nice mobile home. Like I'm talking a RV, and what they have are several pieces of land that are set up with simple connections for the RV. And they just pull in and hook up. So there's other ways to do things, and that would make longer travel a little more doable. But one of the biggest things you have got to factor into this is your lifestyle. What is your lifestyle at your current property where you live full time? How much effort is it to leave? Do you need a house sitter? You know, can your animals go with you? You know, like we have a flock of 100 plus ducks. We need kind of a specialized farm sitter to leave. So I'm at a point now where I'm looking for a second property, and I would like that second property to be within 2 hours. And that's tough financially with where I'm at. So it's all back to what we always say. It depends. With that, let's take another one.